my goodness, baby. You could not have written it out better than this. I'll be completely transparent here and say that this video is being recorded on the night of August 27th, 2024. It will be uploaded sometime on the 28th, probably like early in the morning, just so we can get the rumor out there and go and give my thoughts on this scoop, because today's video is going over a topic that could very well finalize itself sometime over the next 24 hours or so. We're talking about a current NHL free agent and potential PTO signee, a guy who could place himself on an NHL roster in some sort of a tryout capacity in the next few days. And of course, you know, the season is coming, right? Time is winding down for the PTOs to get signed, so it's just a matter of time before this guy and other PTO options like Max Pacioretty, like Tyson Barrie, like other guys actually sign deals. So I kind of have to make this video a little bit safer than most by uploading it maybe at like 5 a.m. PST. What is that, like kind of 8 a.m. Montreal time? Yeah, that kind of makes sense, right? We're targeting Eastern teams in this video. Today what we're doing is talking about a player who is linked to a bunch of teams, the Montreal Canadiens being one of them. And I wanted to talk about that Montreal angle because it would be so incredibly poetic, ironic, and hilarious if this guy signs a PTO with the Habs. Today we're talking about Philip Zadina. And if you're a Canadiens fan who has been a Canadiens fan ever since 2017-2018, Philip Zadina is a name that you are very familiar with. I think for Canadiens fans in that 2017-18 year, if Zadina ended up becoming a Montreal Canadien, most of y'all would have been happy, at least at that time frame. Maybe as his career would have continued and he wouldn't have been as good, maybe then you would have been upset, but still, Philip Zadina is an incredibly relevant name to Montreal Canadiens lore. Because he's a 24-year-old guy, 6 feet, 196, left-handed winger, drafted in the 6th overall spot in 2018. His entire draft story was so incredible because in 2017-18, he was over a point per game with the Halifax Mooseheads. He had 44 goals in 57 games, and as an underage player, he was one of the top scorers at the World Juniors with 7 goals in 7 games that year. That is just totally unheard of when you think about 17, 18-year-old age-ranged talent. So Philip Zadina was a really strong prospect in that 2018 year, and we even made videos back in that time frame saying, hey, could Zadina go 2nd overall over Svechnikov? That was a conversation that we had on this YouTube channel. There's literally a video from 6 years ago talking about that. That was a conversation that was written about in magazines and in articles. Hey, this Zadina guy is doing really well. He might go out there and best out the inevitable 2nd overall Svechnikov in the draft rankings. So for Zadina, he was a 3rd overall unanimously ranked pick pretty much everywhere by the time the draft came and went, and heading into the event it was like, okay, he could drop maybe, like if Brady Tkachuk goes a little bit higher, then Zadina might go 4th, but he ended up slipping a little bit more because he had 2 teams in the top 6 of the NHL draft that ended up reaching on centers. In the 3rd overall spot, the Montreal Canadiens drafted Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and in the 5th overall spot, the Arizona Coyotes drafted Barrett Hayton. 2 guys that were nowhere near top 5 caliber talents, but because they were centers, they ended up going that high, and they pushed Zadina down the ranks. He went 6th overall to Detroit, Quinn Hughes went 7th overall to Vancouver, and the rest is history. Now, I just realized we've gotten 4 minutes into this gosh darn video without actually talking about the updates, so we'll skip the story after he got drafted for now. We'll get back to that later, because when it comes to the newest report out of Lance Wysowski, he writes stuff for the Buffalo News in the Buffalo area, and he tweeted this out earlier yesterday. The report about Philip Zadina signing a PTO with the Sabres is inaccurate. His agent, Darren Ferris, told me that he is in the process of completing a contract for Philip Zadina with another team. Now, I didn't see the Philip Zadina to Buffalo conversation pop up, but Lance Wysowski does do stuff for the local media beat in Buffalo, so I'm gonna assume that he knows what he's talking about here. Philip Zadina is not going to Buffalo. Okay, great. Where is he going instead? Kevin Weeks went out there and tweeted this as well yesterday, that per his sources there are as many as 3 clubs in discussion for Philip Zadina at this time. And then you had yourselves this tweet made by Pavel Barta, who's a hockey writer at Denik Sport, which I'm going to assume is a Czech journalism platform. Here's the tweet that he made yesterday as well. Agent Darren Ferris told Lance Wasowski of the Buffalo News that Philip Zadina is nearing a PTO, but not with the Buffalo Sabres. There was also speculation about the Toronto Maple Leafs, Colorado Avalanche, and Montreal Canadiens, mainly because the ice was moving. And this tweet had 100,000 views and a bunch of quote tweets from Montreal Canadiens fans saying, hey, would it not be hilarious if Montreal signs Philip Zadina to a PTO? Marc-Olivier Baudouin went out there and quote-tweeted the Pavel Barta tweet saying this. According to this reporter, the Canadiens are one of 3 clubs wanting to sign Zadina to a PTO, the other 2 being the Leafs and the Avalanche. A PTO doesn't commit you to anything. To be continued. #Habs. Now, before we dive into the actual teams, I wanted to go back over to the story of Philip Zadina firstly, because unfortunately, he kind of stunk with the Detroit Red Wings. Sure, he was a top-caliber prospect, and he was a guy that was supposed to be able to get 30, 40 goals in a season. He said that he wanted to make Montreal and all these other teams regret not taking him in the draft by filling up their nets with pucks. And unfortunately, he maxed out getting 10 goals in an NHL season in 74 games with the Red Wings. Eventually, things kind of went awry, and he was never really able to improve his game to a significant capacity. Sure, he got better defensively, but he didn't really do too much offensively. And eventually, he left, went to San Jose, left some money on the table, bet on himself. He had 23 points in 72 games played this most previous season with 13 goals. I mean, it's San Jose. What are you going to do? The guy was a minus 44. So Philip Zadina's value is pretty low right now, and honestly, I feel like a lot of that does have to do with the fact that he was such a highly touted pick. I mean, he went first over Quinn Hughes, Evan Bouchard, Noah Dobson. I get I'm only talking about defensemen in that list there, but still, Zadina was supposed to be better than a lot of these guys, value-wise and offensively. He just hasn't been. So, for Philip Zadina to round himself out to the point where he can be a serviceable middle-to-bottom 6 depth scorer at the NHL level, the fact that he was a 6th overall pick who had these tribulations in development really hurts the projection and the, let's just say, the reputation that he's got around the league. So for now, what I wanted to do was talk about each of these 3 teams and go over what they could do with the Philip Zadina. All of these 3 teams, Montreal, Toronto, and Colorado, I feel like they could use some extra scoring throughout the rest of their lineup if they really needed to. If they wanted to be the team to say, hey, we've got a core here, we've got some younger offensive players that we want to put into the NHL and have them develop. Montreal, I think, is more strong in that aspect. And we kind of need the extra support if we think Philip Zadina can get us 15 goals in a middle-to-bottom 6 role at a cheap dollar amount. We'll sign him to a PTO, and then we'll sign him to a $900,000 contract if he's good enough, and then we're balling. Because if he gets 15 goals, then, hey, that's value there. Montreal, I think, has a bigger opportunity for Zadina to develop some chemistry with other younger dudes, but I do kind of question the necessity for another goal-scoring caliber guy when you already have Laine and Caulfield on your 1-2 lines. If you really think that Philip Zadina can outdo, let's say, a Brendan Gallagher or an Anderson on the 3rd or 4th line, then hey, be my guest, but I could totally understand if you didn't really believe that. Toronto is in a spot because they're going to lose out on Nick Robertson soon. If they wanted somebody to fill in that role, Philip Zadina, I think, could do that pretty well, especially since I don't think he's going to have as much of a demand for ice time like Nick Robertson has had. And that's not to diss Nick Robertson. I think it's fairly justified, the way that he wants more ice time. It's just with Toronto, it's tough because he's not going to be able to get it. And then for Colorado, they're a competitive team, they're a good team, probably the best team out of these 3, and they do have some other younger guys that can probably make an impact sooner or later. I'm thinking of guys like Oscar Olausson, I'm thinking about other dudes that they have drafted over the past few years. Callum Ritchie out of the Oshawa system is a pretty good one, and then you have a few other guys rotating around there too. Jean-Luc Foudy, I think. Does he have an opportunity? Who really knows? If you wanted to get some younger chemistry there, maybe play Philip Zadina with these guys because that could be the start of something new. But for now, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Philip Zadina, his story, and the 3 teams linked to him. By the time this video is uploaded, maybe he already signs, who really knows? But for now, thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. 9. and bye.